Hello and welcome to the video tutorial on Journey to the Deep Below by Trey Bliss and William Eugene.
Journey to the Deep Below is a 3-player cooperative game focusing on teamwork and resource management. Each of the 3 players controls one of the playable adventurers, while the board itself is treated as the designer. It is the goal of the adventurers to explore towards the back of the dungeon, locate the designer, and defeat them.
With this being a cooperative game, it is extremely important to make sure you work with your teammates. This includes giving advice and planning your moves many steps ahead. Setting up and Journey to the Deep Below is relatively easy. You begin by putting the main pieces on the entrance square. Then, you place the stack cards in their appropriate zone on the bottom right of the board. After that, you put the room decks on the left side of the board in their appropriate zones. Then, you put the treasures on the bottom left. Next, you take the Absurdomancy spells and separate them by Climax of Madness, Angered, and Annoyed, and stack them from bottom to top, while placing them in their appropriate zones. Finally, you pick who gets what characters and rolling the die that's included with the game to see who goes first.
Player turns are divided into 4 sequential phases: draw, skill, move, and resolution. During the draw phase, players must draw stat cards according to the numbers in their character card's attribute zone. There is no maximum hand limit for stat cards. The skill phase, which is an optional phase, and occurs between the draw phase and the move phase, meaning that if you decide to move after drawing, you can no longer do the skill phase. And it allows players to exchange 2 cards from their dominant attribute, the one that's labeled 2 on the character card, for one stat card to their recessive attribute, which is the stat on the character card labeled 0. During the move phase, players may move 1 space in any cardinal directions. No diagonals. Upon moving anywhere that is neither the entrance space nor a space occupied by another room, they must draw a tile from the light scale relevant to where they are heading and place it face up on the board. The resolution phase occurs after entering a new room. If it is a newly discovered room, then the player must perform the action that the room demands if there is one. If the room has been completed previously, this phase is skipped. Once all phases are completed, it repeats at phase 1 for the next player in the turn order.
After the last player in the turn order goes, or also after every 3 turns, except for the first turn of the game, a player must draw a card from the Absurdomancy spell deck and place it in the active spells zone. The effects of the various spells in the active spell zones are considered always in play until they are negated by their own effect or the effect of a spell dissolved treasure. The longer the game takes, the stronger the Absurdomancy spell, eventually becoming an effect that instantly ends the game.
There are 4 types of rooms that adventurers can explore: obstacle rooms, treasure rooms, empty rooms, and the boss room. Obstacle rooms are rooms designed to impede the adventurers on their journey. In order to bypass them, the adventurers must return a certain number of stat cards to the stat card zone. Card type and amount will be displayed on the room tile. When beaten, the tile is flipped upside down. Treasure rooms! These rooms, when completed, allow the adventurer that cleared them to draw a single card from the treasure deck. Each player can only hold 2 treasure cards in their hands simultaneously. Empty treasure rooms are considered immediately completed, and all other treasure rooms must be completed like an obstacle room before obtaining a treasure. If they find a treasure room while holding 2 treasures, they automatically backtrack and place an incomplete treasure room token on the treasure room. Rooms with the token are treated as if they were never entered. All treasures are single use, and once used, get immediately discarded. Players may trade and use treasures between themselves provided they are in the same room as the recipient of their trade. Empty rooms. These rooms, as their name suggests, have nothing in them and are considered already completed. If an adventurer explores a newly placed empty room on their turn, they skip the resolution phase. Boss room. This room is where the designer resides and can only be found in the very back of the dungeon. All 3 players will have to work together to clear this room. If they successfully do so, they win.
Actions that players are able to make inside of rooms. They are able to defeat the room by paying its cost, skill share, and fleeing. If a player is unable to match the resource needed to beat the room, other players may skill share. Skill sharing involves one or more allies taking one damage token to supply the in-damage player with as many stack cards as necessary to bypass the obstacle. If an adventurer does not have the required stack cards and nobody skill shares, they must flee. To flee, they roll the tetrahedral die. If the value rolled is greater than the obstacle's difficulty, the adventurer goes back to their previous space and is unharmed. But if they fail to flee, then they must take the damage that is listed on that card.
The game ends or can end in the following way. If the adventurers manage to reach the deep below and defeat the designer, they win. The adventurers will lose if all three become incapacitated, or if the Climax of Madness Absurdomancy spell card is activated.
So now, adventurers, I ask you the most important of questions. Can you conquer the deep below?